Aloha, good afternoon. It is 2:31 p.m. on Wednesday, July 24th, 2024, and I call the Committee on Housing, Sustainability, and Health to order. Welcome, Council Members Dos Santos Tam, Se, Okimoto, Toba. Committee Vice Chair Kia Aina is excused from today's meeting. Pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statute Section 92-3.7, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony remotely or in person in the council chamber on all items on the agenda when each item is taken up. All persons who registered to testify in person will be called upon first, followed by those who registered to testify remotely. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to testify following the registered testifiers. For those standing by remotely, please utilize the Zoom raise hand feature to indicate your desire to speak. For those joining us by telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. I will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. When your number is called, press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Before testifying, each person shall state their full name and will be limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at a remote meeting to be conducted by roll call unless unanimous. I'll first call for objections, and if there are any, I will call for a roll call vote. Don't believe we have any council members joining us remotely, but in case we have any log on, for those participating from outside the council chamber under HRS Section 92-3.7, the meeting would automatically recess if we lose audiovisual contact and cannot reconvene until we reestablish contact with those council members. Therefore, please announce beforehand if you'll be voluntarily signing out of the meeting. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones, and we'll move to agenda item number 1 for action, Resolution 24-169, confirming the appointment of Dr. Kirsten L.L. Olson to serve on the Climate Change Commission of the City and County of Honolulu for a term to expire on June 30th, 2029. I believe, Dr. Olson, we do have you participating remotely. Mahalo for joining us. I'll just turn the floor over to you for a moment if you wanted to just share a little bit about yourself and your goals in serving on the commission.
Sure, thank you so much. Yeah, I am a professor of ecological economics at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I teach policy analysis and graduate classes in social ecological systems, so the connection between humans and nature. I'm excited to join the commission. I've been working on climate adaptation and mitigation for a couple of decades now. I have a number of active research projects, and I'm hoping to bring some of the cutting-edge science to bear in the actions of the city, in developing policies and providing advice. I obviously am new to the commission, so we'll spend the first little bit of time in getting my bearings and understanding what the priorities of the commission are now, and build on those. But yeah, thank you very much for nominating me. I'm really excited for the next 5 years, should I be confirmed.
Mahalo for that. I'd also welcome Councilmember Tupola to the chamber and just ask if the committee has any additional questions of Dr. Olson. Seeing none, just wanted to say mahalo again to you. Appreciate you making time to talk Story 101 and also being present today. And just thank you for your willingness to bring your expertise and serve our community. So thank you. Members, we'll now go to testimony. Clerks, do we have any in-person registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Anyone wishing to testify that's unregistered in the chamber can come forward and go ahead and identify yourself and proceed.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES and strong support. So I'm going to testify in strong support of the doctor because she's a doctor. And also, I think the city is going to need an climate specialist working on cutting edge science and projects, because within the city there is a focus on development, right? And then also because in the Hawaiian culture, it's very focused on nature and plants. I think that specialty can really help to explain the science to urbanization development and environmental science. So yeah, just an idea of it. I think that sort of work and background is going to be very helpful.
Mahalo, Ms. Young. Any questions for the testifiers? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Anyone else in the chamber wishing to testify can come forward. Seeing none, I don't believe we have any online registered testifiers. Anyone wishing to testify can use the raise hand feature. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close testimony. Members, is there any discussion before I make my recommendation? Okay, hearing none, the chair is going to recommend that Resolution 24-169 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? So ordered. We'll now move to agenda item number 2 for action, Resolution 24-191, authorizing the lease of city property located at 360 California Avenue, Wahiawa, Hawaii, 96786. Identified as TMK 17-3-004-020 to be used for their temporary housing program for families with children experiencing homelessness for a rent of $100 per month or $1,200 per year for a period of 4.5 years to Family Promise of Hawaii. I believe we have Director Anton Krupke from the Department of Community Services here. Director, do you wanted to share a little bit about the resolution and the work that the department is going to be doing with this community partner?
Thank you very much. Again, Anton Krupke, Director, Department of Community Services, Committee Chair Wire, and council members. Thank you for allowing me to talk about this subject. I'm very happy that this is moving forward. It's really been a staged plan over a year and a half. This was last year's CBDG money that purchased this property to be able to bring it forth for this use in this community. Family Promise is part of a network of other family sheltering and transitional houses that we have in the island. And, you know, with the issues that we address with homelessness, family homelessness is really 1.4 times the amount of the general population of homelessness. And that's because usually in a family, you've got 3 or 4 people that are involved in this. And so we have this network of transitional houses and shelters that we're putting up so that we can address this issue. And Family Promise already has 3 of these, and they've proven that they can run these very well. They have a nice program from intake, and then once they have the folks in the shelter and they do the work with them, they're usually there for about 3 months. And then from 3 months, they can move them on to the next stage in their journey, leaving spaces open for the next family. So families kind of, if you saw the Star Advertiser article, it just looked like we were backlogged in families waiting for these type of places, and that's true. But we work within a network, and so that's why we announced last month Waikiki Vista with Catholic Charities and Family Promise, and you've approved, and just this week we finalized the lease and sent it to the state for the Honolulu property. So all in a sequence of doing these. And so Family Promise is a wonderful organization. The folks that they deal with really appreciate what they're doing. And like I said, they have 3 already. They have another one in addition to this one in Mo'ili'ili that's going to be activated. So they'll have 5 units on this island. They also work in Maui as well. So they really do great work. They'll have more than 12 families, and in this unit they can probably go up to 20. And so it's a great addition. Mostly the folks that they'll be accepting will be from Central Oahu and from that neighborhood. And that's why the Hauula one is for that group, Waikiki Vista for in town. So we're trying to geographically also address that because most families like to stay in the areas that they're from. So I really appreciate the council, you know, looking at this, the committee taking it on to council to be approved, and we can actuate this. You know, we're hopeful that people can be starting to be in there in August. When we get this through. So thank you very much. We're very supportive of this resolution.
Mahalo, Director, and mahalo for all the work you're doing. That's extremely exciting to think folks may be housed here in August. Are there any questions from the committee for the Director? Seeing none, oh, Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. Aloha, Director. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
I did read through some of it, so please forgive me if there's some things written here that I might ask a question about and missed. But you said that the units could go up to 20, but it's 12. So how many units actually are there?
Excuse me, there's 18 units in the building, but they're configured where there's multiple rooms in a unit, so it kind of depends. And so their plan is to start with 12 families, and then they'll see how that adjusts as those 12 families come in. You know, if a family is a parent and one child, they require something different than a multi-generation family that might have 8 people. But this facility can handle something like that, which is pretty exciting.
Good. My next question, and you know, I know that it's Councilmember Wire's area, but the outreach providers are actually all throughout my area, and Kealoha West took over the Achieve Zero contract. So I just wanted to know, is Family Promise going to have outreach workers that go out, or are they just going to be kind of case managers within the building?
They have the case managers that are in the building to manage those families that participate. In terms of the outreach going out, they participate with many folks around the islands, and you know, whether it be Aloha United Way, Aloha West, to source the referrals. They have their list of referrals that come directly to them, but then they also go into the network. Like as an example, the second family that went in at Waikiki Vista came from the Family Promise list, right? So they're all trying to work together there.
Understood. So what you're saying is they'll get referrals. Long story short, they're going to get referrals.
Yes.
Got it. So the other question I had was for, you know, other projects like this, there's always got to be something on or nearby that's kind of helping with medical or something. Is there going to be any other services on the property besides just the housing, like a communal area or like a healthcare provider or dental? Like we have one at Kamakaʻoku with like a little room where Waianako's Comp provides services for the people there. Is there something else that'll be there?
I haven't spoken with Ryan, the CEO, on something like a medical piece there, but they do have the capabilities to do that. Also, the emergency room has been opened back up in Central Oahu.
Yeah,
so
I heard.
We have that. But there is communal space, and a lot of the work that they do is communal. Like they ask, as an example would be, they ask for volunteers in the community that want to help with communal meals. And it's not a service of meals in general, it's only for the people in that building. So it's just part of building their camaraderie, their love for each other, so that when they're ready to go out, they have that strength to move on to the next part of their journey.
Yeah, and I guess because most of the affordable housing is in my district as far as where they transition to, I'll just reach out to Family Promise and kind of talk with them through some of that, because we do have 2 brand new ones that are coming up that have $500 studios, $2,400 4 bedrooms. So I just want us to make sure to create a clear pipeline, especially because our caseworkers now go from Wahiawa all the way to Ka'ena Point in one nonprofit. So yeah, thank you for this. How long is this one going to last as far as the lease that you're doing with them?
This is a 4.5-year lease.
4.5. Good. And then this is not the first one the city's partnered with them, or it is the first one? Because I think the other ones that you mentioned, they're running those on their own, correct?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Well, I hope it goes good. I mean, they're a good organization. It's the first time I heard the city partnering with them, so that's good. Thank you, Chair.
Mahalo. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, I just had a quick housekeeping one. Directors, my understanding, were there 2 applicants for the RFP for this particular property or use of this particular property? I think there are multiple properties in the RFP when it went out.
Yes, there were 2.
Okay, mahalo. See no other questions from Director. We'll go ahead and go to testimony. We'll go to in-person. Having no registered, anyone wishing to testify can come up. Ms. Young, proceed when you're ready, and anyone else in the chamber wishing to testify can make their way as well, but seeing none, we'll go with you, Ms. Young, and then go to remote testimony.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES in strong support of the Family Promise resolution. Because CARES is research focused, we're just gonna testify because the special needs homeless is an even more special category of homelessness. So although we're happy that there's going to be that shelter for the homeless, there should also be something that should be like brought to the attention of the public is that, for example, special needs homeless is a double negative. So a disabled homeless, that's how they define it by HUD, is a severe medical condition such as a disability when someone is injured and debilitated and cannot function in society, right? That's the most simplified way to explain a disability. And so although there is a focus on housing, there should be also focus on treatment for the special needs homeless because they're even more disadvantaged. And so policy through equity, health equity balances that because it can address these social determinants of health and also for those that suffer from that special needs homelessness category, the funding can really provide medical resources for them. And yeah, so if the council really wants to read into it, you should read the HUD criteria requirement and the qualification for disabled homeless and special needs homeless.
Mahalo, appreciate that insight, Ms. Young. Any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, thank you again. We'll go to online, having no registered testifiers. Anyone wishing to testify can identify yourself with the raise hand feature. Seeing none and having no registered testifiers, we'll go ahead and close testimony and then open it up for discussion. Seeing no discussion, we'll go ahead and move on to the resolution. I was gonna make 2 oral amendments. So as a third whereas, so after the whereas, second one that says proposals were received for each of the properties by the August 21st, 2023 deadline, and we'll add another clause after that to read, whereas 2 proposals were received for the subject property. And then moving down to the whereas that reads, whereas in accordance with ROH section 38-3.4D, a written report was submitted to the city clerk on February 20, 2024. After that comma, we'll add as D-117, which is reflecting the departmental communication that was filed. Okay, so with those amendments discussed, Chair's going to recommend that Resolution 24-191 be amended to a CD1 as discussed. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, those amendments will be made, and then Chair's going to recommend that Resolution 24-191 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Mahalo again, Director, for coming down and looking forward to the project. And that brings us to agenda item number 3 for action, Bill 26, 2024, FD1, designating the month of May as Honor Our Kupuna Month to recognize and honor the great wisdom, generational knowledge, and substantial contributions of the beloved kupuna of Oahu. I believe we have Director Krucky identified for this item as well. Welcome any thoughts you have or position of the administration.
Thank you, Committee Chair. Again, Anton Krucky, Department of Community Services Director. I would just say in concert with this resolution that the Department of Community Services, the Elderly Affairs Division, in concert with what is going around in the United States that we're participating in with this month, we will also hold a recognition event, and we will honor an outstanding older American from Oahu, from the islands in Hawaii, for all the islands, and we'll hold that event. So we'll be participating in concert with your Kupuna Month. Thank you very much.
Mahalo for that, and please do let us know, because the Outstanding Americans event is so wonderful, and so I know we all welcome the opportunity to equally honor their contributions to our community.
I'd be honored to send you all an invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for the Director? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and go to testimony. Having no registered testifiers, would invite anyone in the chamber wishing to testify to come up to the podium. Seeing none, we'll go to remote. With no registered testifiers, anyone online can identify themselves. With none, we'll go ahead and go back into discussion. Any discussion from the committee? Councilmember Okimoto.
Mahalo, Chair Wire. I want to thank you so much, Chair, for having this measure heard, and thankful for the input from Director Krucky, and thank my fellow colleagues in hearing this measure. You know, in Hawaii, 21% of our state's population of people are over the age of 60. 240,000 of that is our elderly, and we esteem them. They're beloved to us. We call them kupuna, and 240,000 of them reside here on our island of Oahu. So these amazing individuals are our parents, our grandparents, aunties, uncles, cousins, friends who have spent their lives working hard, sacrificing much, and contributing their knowledge and wisdom to us and our communities in order to build a better future for the next generation. Growing up, my parents instilled in my siblings and I the importance, as probably most of us here in Hawaii, of respecting and learning from our elders. I'm so grateful for being taught that at a young age. Our kupuna are recognized as the source of strength and wisdom in all of our families and communities, and should never be overlooked, or they should never feel taken advantage of. With this bill, this measure, we are honoring the many, many kupuna who are the bridges connecting all generations. Through their examples, they are able to remind us of where we came from, who we are, and how we can take our rich heritage and culture, gleaming from their knowledge and experiences as we move forward towards our future. With that, I ask for the support, continued support in passing this measure, recognizing the month of May annually as Honor Our Kupuna Month. Thank you, Chair.
Mahalo for those words. And seeing no other discussion, our Councilmember Tupola.
Who'd you say was here from the administration? Was it Director Krucky?
It was.
Oh, okay, can I just ask the question real fast?
Of course.
Thank you. Hey, Director. So I guess my quick thought was, we just spoke about in Parks Committee that various of, the buildings that we rename are named after some of the kupuna in the community that have passed, or because of their legacy or their contributions. So something that I think is very important is when we pass things like this, that we have intention to do something different, right? To do something that we might not have done before that can further accomplish the goal. So I know that this would be a little bit of collaboration, but I do think that not just renaming places, but actually having some type of plaque or something, and even if we don't have a plaque or it's not at the physical building, us actually writing the history of who that person was and why they contributed, because I think that we have talked various times about it, but again, coming from this trip I just took to another country, another city, and they literally had museums everywhere and talked about all of the people that contributed to where they were. So I just wanted to ask if that's something maybe every May we could try to focus on a few of the kupuna that were honored within the city and have buildings named after them, and try to either get a statue or a plaque or something written on the city website about them.
Thank you for those comments. Kupuna are revered by all of us. I mean, so, I have no issue in collaborating and doing that. In our plans at DCS, we're looking at moving at a new location, and the council has approved the PIMS for us to do that. We plan to open a Kupuna resource center that would be a combination of both library services, interactive services, and a place where we can hold sessions and bring kupuna in, right, with free parking. And we're really trying to look through this. And I think that, whether it be a building, whether it be pictures on the wall with their story, all those things. So let's discuss it. Let's come up with what works for us. I think a combination of all those things are good. The stories and what we put forth when we have this luncheon and the outstanding older Americans are chosen are quite impressive. So it's worthy of your comments.
Oh, thank you. I would love to work with you on that. And thank you, Councilmember Okimoto, for doing this. Thank you, Chair.
Malo, any other discussion? And definitely echo those sentiments in terms of the work that our kupuna do. It is awesome. I mean, many of them are retired, but then through their volunteerism are still working and serving our community. So look forward to any collaboration that we can all work on together. And the chair is going to recommend that Bill 26, 2024 FD1 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. And that brings us to agenda item number 4, informational briefing with Heather Lusk. It's a presentation on the sequential INTERCEPT model, understanding the dynamics between behavioral health and the criminal justice system by the Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center. For your information, we have a presentation that's available as miscellaneous communication 320. As mentioned, I believe Ms. Director Lusk is logging on from the Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center, also the recipient of the Legacy Foundation's visionary work, doing so much great work in our community. So we're so blessed and grateful to have you joining us today. I'll go ahead and turn the mic over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Chair. And forgive me, for some reason, we're having internet issues. So if it gets too unstable, I apologize in advance, which cut me off. But thank you so much, Chair. And really excited to come and talk to you today about the sequential INTERCEPT model. And if it's okay, I'll share screen to show my slide set today.
Perfect.
Okay, can folks see that okay?
Perfect, yep, it came up on
Okay,
this.
great. Okay, great. Thank you again, Chair and members of the Council. Really excited to talk to you about the Oahu sequential INTERCEPT model. In fact, Director Krucki participated in the process last year, as well as did many people from the City and County of Honolulu. Before I get started, just for those of you that don't know the Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center, we work at the intersection of the criminal legal system, chronic disease like HIV, mental health, substance use, and houselessness. We have about a third of our services on the street. We do homeless outreach, street medicine, as well as our medical mobile unit on the streets. And then we have a clinic here in Kaka'ako that provides services. But the reason I'm here today is to talk to you about the SIM, or the sequential INTERCEPT model. The reason that this came to be is, thank you again, Chair, and also I was talking to our council member for our district, Council Member DeSantos Tam, about the Stepping Up initiative, which I will end with, which is county councils like you are making their voices heard about the importance of supporting people with behavioral health, mental health, substance use, and health issues in community, and trying to look at ways to better work with the criminal legal system and folks that are struggling, whether it's houselessness or behavioral health. So I'll get to that in a moment. But what is SIM mapping? It is a best practice supported by the Substance Use and Mental Health Services Administration, that they recommend that jurisdictions like ours do them about every 5 years. And what you're doing is assessing the services on the island of Oahu in the City and County of Honolulu in each of these what's called intercepts. So prior to a crisis, how do we prevent crisis? How do we support our law enforcement officers in the best that we can do with the tools, things like crisis intervention? Then how do we in Intercept 2 work with our courts? Intercept 3, as you see here, is jails and prisons. Intercept 4 is folks reentering to community. And Intercept 5 is community correctional work. So again, the recommendation is that communities like ours do this every 5 years so that we can assess all of the services, really ensure that everybody who's doing this work knows what's going on, that we can support collaboration, and then identify gaps for recommendations. And then we create a customizable local resource map that also identifies, again, any gaps and prioritizes recommendations for either policymakers like yourselves or at the state legislature. So just to go over these intercepts briefly, as I mentioned, Intercept 1 is community services. So this is looking at things like outreach, crisis mobile outreach, looking at things like calling 988, things before law enforcement get involved. How can we prevent crises from happening? And how do we help develop and coordinate our services so that if somebody has needs, we can go upstream and help meet the needs before it becomes a crisis that people call 911. I think I work very closely with the Honolulu Police Department. In fact, I'm the CIT lead for the clinical. We have a CIT training this week. I'm training 20 Honolulu police officers. Now we're going to be over 250 trained. But they do such great work, but they need to be focusing on what I call the true crime, the true public safety, and not getting called 911 for things that could be better handled in community or prevented. So that's your Intercept Zero, some of the things you already were talking about. At Intercept One, this is where things like, also CORE. So CORE is a great example that you all have supported. CORE is at Intercept Zero and Intercept One. They hopefully can prevent before people have to go to the emergency room, as well as hopefully prevent law enforcement from having to engage with folks that aren't a public safety issue, that are more a mental health or health issue. Then Intercept One works with our law enforcement, again, about how can we support our law enforcement in having more places to take people besides jail. So many of you know that we now have the Behavioral Health Crisis Center in Iwalei by the state. And actually, I just talked to Dr. Scott Mishkovich this morning about the city's new crisis center in the old FHB building. Those are perfect examples of things that would be at Intercept One, where law enforcement can drop off people that have needs, because those needs are better met in the community than in the jail setting, where really they don't have the medical abilities to do so. So those are the two that we focus the most on, are 0 and 1, and I think the ones that really reflect the City Council's purview. Then we get into more of what the state is responsible for, which is hearings and detention, but again, looking at things like drug court, family court, girls court, veterans court, things like that, that help divert folks. Even the prosecutors SUDAFAST, which is another way to divert people into treatment, would qualify in Intercept 2 or 3. Then we bring in the jail piece, and again, I know that's on the state level, but that's where we would bring in community providers into jail, as well as divert people from jail when appropriate. I'm not talking about violent or other offenders, but talking about folks whose only crimes were related to homelessness, mental health, and behavioral health. Intercept 4, as I mentioned, and as you probably know, one of the biggest concerns, and we actually do reentry, is folks getting released from OCCC, released from Halava, and have nowhere to go. And in fact, at 4 o'clock today, I'm meeting with many other reentry folks. We're starting a reentry HUI here on Oahu to be able to try to coordinate better resources for those coming out. And that's what entry 4 is how do we, again, provide services so that there's not this revolving door of people leaving corrections, having no place to go, getting back on the radar and getting arrested and going back inside, which is much more expensive, as you know, than doing community support. And then lastly, Intercept 5, which is community level. This talks about probation, parole, as well as people. I used to work before I moved to Hawaii 24 years ago. I worked in a community correction setting where these people were part of the Department of Corrections, but they were housed in community. So those are the ways that we do. Here is our Intercept model from 2018, the first ever city and county. This was done prior to CIT. Again, CIT being Crisis Intervention Team, that started in 2018 with the Honolulu Police Department. I was part of this, as was, I think at the time it was Mark Alexander, who was the mayor's homeless coordinator, as well as others from the city and county. And they do recommend, again, they get done every 5 years. So last year I raised some money to support a SIM for CIT, as well as the other important efforts that are happening on the level. So just before I continue, I just wanted to note again about CIT. Thank you for your support of CIT. CIT trains Honolulu police officers for 40 hours in de-escalation skills to try to increase officer safety, increase safety of our community, and decrease officer-involved confrontations and arrests. And I'm really excited that I mentioned we have a cohort this week that I've been training and will finish training out this week. The reason I bring up CIT is CIT also believes we should do SIM, and it's what one of the reasons why I also supported, and many of the folks that came to the SIM came this last year. So our SIM happened last summer. We did it out at the Honolulu Police Academy. We did it in collaboration with the Honolulu Police Department, the governor's office, with Dr. Champion, as well as, again, community partners. We had 45 participants, again, many from the city and county, and we released our report in January. As I mentioned, Director Crucky participated from the city and county. We also had the prosecutor's office, the Honolulu Police Department, public defender, as you see here, and then many community partners. We had MedQuest, the Department of Health, DHS, and really felt judiciary. So felt like we had a few stakeholders from most of our key groups. We did not have a lot of policymakers, but that was, not this intent was for folks on the ground to help us. So the result is a sequential intercept model that was released in January. I just sent a copy to Latani. I'm so sorry, I forgot to send it to her ahead of time, or you can get on our website. And then what we found is that already this is changing, right? Already we have the city's new crisis building in Evil A that's not even on this. But this is what the intercept model looked like. I won't spend a ton of time here because you see it's interconnected. But what we were able to do is follow somebody from pre-crisis all the way through to identify what services do we have and where are our gaps. And guess where our biggest gap was actually crisis intervention, having a place that the law enforcement, us as doing outreach, or anybody could go to so that they don't have to go to the emergency room, they don't have to be arrested or go to the state hospital, that they can be triaged and taken care of. And we now have 2 sites, the city run and the state run, both in Evil A that support this. As you see, we have some other resources, like some of the intensive case management that IHS does, CORE doing, outreach and working with paramedicine. Moving along, we have a lot of specialty courts. One of the ones I host at my site is the Community Outreach Court. And then move along the intercept to try to, again, map what's already happening and where are the gaps. So just a little bit closer, these are the intercept 1 and 0. And again, we have a full document that explores each of these and explains each one. But how do we, again, prevent people from even having to engage with law enforcement? How do we prevent crisis? And if they're in crisis, how do we prevent law enforcement involvement unless it's a public safety issue? Then how do we support our law enforcement folks in having all the skills they need and the resources that they have access to? Again, moving along, how do we support our courts in jails as well? Things like Sudafast that the prosecutor does. How do we off-ramp people if treatment is going to be the best for them? And then, as I mentioned, one of the biggest gaps is reentry. As you may know, we only have a few reentry beds on this island at YMCA Fernhurst. IHS has now stepped in, but we need more coordination with reentry. What does all this mean? This means that our group is now formalizing policy recommendations for both the county to share with you all to see if they resonate with you, as well as the state. And these were some of the major recommendations, probably not surprising that we need a more seamless system. We also need homeless prevention monies. As you may know, there's no homeless or very little homeless prevention. We have to wait till they're homeless. We need the drop off, which again, we have already started since we did this. Some of us want more co-response. I'm a social worker. I would love to go out with HPD, and if it's a public safety issue, they address it. If it's a social work issue, I address it. And then we want more treatment on demand. Many of us are looking to the opioid settlement money as monies to provide treatment on demand. And many of us are looking towards the upcoming waiver for Medicaid to cover more of this. So again, this assessment brought all these folks together, and these were the recommendations, which we're now working on making policy recommendations. So what we're doing is talking with folks like you. We're starting a HAWAI, as I mentioned, we actually meet today. And I'm really excited to share that next up, I'm going to Big Island August 22nd and 23rd to facilitate their sequential intercept model. Sorry, Chief. I'm Chief. Maybe you are Chief Wire. Maybe I have a premonition for things to come. But sorry, Chair. I hope I didn't take too long. As you can tell, I'm quite passionate. And my last ask is that there is a thing called the Stepping Up Initiative that the Hawaii County Council signed. And I shared some of this with Chair Wire. I'm happy to send, but it is just very quickly, if I can show you, if I'm not causing too much time, I can just show you that there is a map of these counties that have come together Actually, I'm sorry, I lost it. But it's each county committing to trying to increase community services so that our public safety, our law enforcement, and our jails can do what they were meant to do, which is to rehabilitate, support public safety, and that we get a lot of these folks that are struggling with homelessness, mental health, or behavioral health out of this system and the services they need in community. Thank you for the opportunity to present, and really, again, appreciate the opportunity to not just talk about this, but hopefully foster more dialogue and future services to fill in these gaps. Thank you, Chair.
Mahalo, Director. And I know we have some questions from the committee. Feel free to pull up anything along the way, share screen at any point if there's other info you think is relevant or you want to impart on us, because you really are in many ways the expert. Councilmember Toba had some questions, Councilmember Okimoto, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Aloha, Ms. Lusk. Thank you so much for the presentation. Hey, I just wanted to know, can you share with us maybe like a success story or maybe data on how well this is working? You know, we doing a thing in my district in hopes that maybe you could maybe come out and do a presentation with us. But could you share a success story or maybe even
Sure.
data on the success?
Sure. Specifically, are you talking about this a CIT success, Council Member?
Correct.
Yes. So yes, I can actually. Sergeant Corbin is is my co-lead. He's an HPD officer. So we actually have a video of him prior to CIT working with somebody that was suicidal, and then we have an officer cam of him after CIT. Also working with somebody that was suicidal. He was successful in both cases, talking the person down and successfully saving their life. And why he shares those stories, in fact, we're going to watch them tomorrow. It helps the officer see he did well prior to crisis intervention, but it was a lot more escalated. His voice was raised. It took a lot longer. After the crisis intervention team, it shows him being able to talk this woman off a bridge in about 10 minutes. Since CIT, I have had 7 officers reach out to me personally and say that they believe they saved a life because of their ability to de-escalate somebody that was suicidal, because as you know, our police are first responders. So those are examples to me of where a life was saved because the officers felt like they had the skills and the confidence. The other thing I want to share, Council Member, is that our police department is very progressive in the way that not only do they support crisis intervention, but if a CIT officer is on scene, they allow the CIT officer to run the scene. Meaning, if anybody's been around police, it can be chaotic with one person saying, put your hands up, one saying, get down. If it's a CIT officer, not all law enforcement departments do this, but this one allows then the CIT officer who's more trained to run and take lead, and the rest of the officers support them. And I've heard countless stories of success, whether it is working with somebody that was autistic and running in the road, whether it was somebody with dementia who couldn't remember where they lived, or whether it was somebody that was houseless that had been called 4 or 5 times in front of a store. These skills, the officers tell me, help them address them so they get less calls like that because they actually help solve the issue or do a warm handoff to people like me and then can get back to the public safety issues that we most need them for. So I'm happy to work with my police colleagues or to get that, or you might go to HPD themselves as they are collecting data on the effectiveness of CIT.
Awesome, because I would like to see this come out to my community. You know, I understand that you guys are doing it in town. I do believe that homelessness and it's not only a statewide issue. I think it's a community thing, and everyone has different challenges. So I would love to see, you know, more programs like this come to my district.
I do believe you have some officers trained, just so you know. We have officers in every district, but maybe we haven't met that quorum. There's enough of them to be able, because the goal is that when someone calls 911 to ask for, can I get a CIT officer if it's related to some of these issues, so then dispatch can actually send them out. And I know that we do that when we call and it works. And then we see again, if it's related to homelessness, behavioral health, or substance use, that CIT officers have that extra level of training to do. But I'm happy to follow up offline to ensure or even help you know who the officers in your district that are trained in crisis intervention.
Yeah, that would help a lot if you could give me the list of CIT officers. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Of course, Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha, Director Lusk. Thank you so much for being here and answering these questions. I actually was able to attend a symposium last week, and one of the main topics actually was the CIT. And so I actually sent Officer Corbin and I asked him, and my plan is to have them come to a public safety hearing to present this program that you guys have started. I believe he was part of the first class in 2018.
He was the very first class.
Yeah, he shared with me the journey that he's taken from being a student to now being on the back end as a mentor. But it was really impressive, and I did talk to him and somebody from NAMI, I think that NAMI Hawaii.
That's Kumi.
Yes,
yeah,
Kumi.
So just so you know, the three of us are the three, so it's me, Corbin, and Kumi are the three. I couldn't come to the FBI meeting, but we're the three chairs of CIT, correct?
Great.
Yes.
Okay, you're going to be here. We're going to invite you, because I did talk to both of them. I'm not sure. I don't think I got to speak with you. But you mentioned, and I thank you for bringing this presentation to us to let us know on the ends that you're working on, dealing with the mental health, which is, although it's not the majority, I keep on getting told, it is a very visual part of our homeless population. And one thing that I heard from different people at that symposium that I attended was just trying to fill the gaps in communication. So you mentioned here in your presentation that with the SIM, the intercepts that you have, and then CIT working together, I wanted to know, where are there gaps that we can fill, either with collaboration with HPD or, with I'm not sure which organizations, because I heard that the key is being able to communicate. So I was wondering if you could kind of explain to us from your perspective where we could help along the ways of having communication and collaboration so that this type of resource is available. Officer Corbin had shared some of the success stories, but I would like to know what we can do on our end to support you guys.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Council Member. So glad you got to go to the symposium. I was sad not to make it, but I heard it went well, and we're actually doing a follow-up meeting with the FBI next week because they want to do more.
Yes, it was great. I'm hoping to attend again, yeah.
Good, good. So there's a couple different things that come to mind. One is that the Honolulu Police Department used to have a community outreach unit. This was run by Major Mike Lambert, and that unit's no longer around. And why I don't know why that they decided to do that. Sorry. Ever since the community outreach unit was dispelled, all of us have to work with our community policing teams in each district. And so what we're missing is we used to actually have meetings between homeless providers and the HPD. Because let's be real, sometimes they actually know where our people are better than us. So we would actually do case conferencing where we would be like, have they seen this person? Have you seen this person? And so we did more collaboration. Why we are, like I just met with my District 1 community policing counterparts to try to start that again. That is one thing. It would be really helpful to look at more collaboration and information sharing among HPD and the providers. Now, I want to be careful when I say that, because in no way I know that I need to be careful. I have HIPAA and I got to protect information where I might not be sharing information with HPD, but they don't have the same HIPAA protections, and so they've been able to share with us. It helps us find our people. It helps us reconnect with people. So that's one area of information sharing that I know I'm not the only person who misses that. Again, it's happening on an agency, like I know IHS talks with the HPD, but it used to be more collaborative where we all got together and did that work so that we wouldn't miss out on kind of that linking and syncing. So I think that's one area. I think another area is continuing to, as the Department of Community Services CORE continues to do this work for us again to do that communication sharing. So many of us share people with CORE. I have been blessed to have CORE's gone out with some of my teams gone out with CORE, but continuing again that collaboration. So that's my theme, Council Member, is the more that we can collaborate, we realize how many people we share, right? They touched us, they touched ISH, they touched the police. There's also the same person in front of the, the restaurant. The more that we can do that, the more we're able to help the ultimate goal, which is the community member that needs it.
No,
so I'm not sure if that was helpful or too basic, but that's kind of where I'm coming from.
No, I appreciate that. And I do recall with FERPA and HIPAA, which was another discussion that was at the symposium, that was something, especially when we're relating to whether they're minors that have mental health issues or adults, that there are things that we need to be mindful of. But like you said, that there are resources out there. So I think, I'm thinking in my head what I want in this info briefing. We're going to invite you guys there for sure, because the goal is, again, to not allow these barriers to stop us from helping each other, but understanding what what is allowed, what's not allowed, and how we can work together to help our community members. And so thank you for sharing that. And I look forward to welcoming you and Kumi and Officer Corbin to our Public Safety Committee hearing soon. Thank you. Thank you,
Good.
Chair.
Look forward to it. Thank you so much, Council Member.
Mahalo. I'll just note we did are filing the 2024 Oahu Sequential Intercept Model as Miscellaneous Communications 335 and 336. So that report with the appendices, Heather, is going to be filed as well, and we just passed it out so folks have that to look at. I just wanted to ask a few questions, and thank you again for all the work you're doing. So when we're looking at the crisis intervention, you had mentioned there's 2 in Iwile, a state-run and a city-run program. Which ones are those again that you're referencing?
Yes, so one is called the BHCC, the Behavioral Health Crisis Center. And that is run by, I believe it's run by CARE Hawaii, but the Department of Health is, and Dr. Koyanagi with the Adult Mental Health Division is operating that. I think they have 9 beds open, but I can't speak anymore. And they just opened, I think, last month with a soft. And so the Honolulu Police Department can now drop off people to that site for what's called an MH1, if that's approved. MH1 is a approval to transport somebody for a involuntary psych exam. So, and I'll know more because actually they're coming to present to at the crisis intervention team on Friday. So I'm hoping to learn more. This morning I talked to Dr. Scott Miskovich, who he told me that he had been hired by the mayor and Director Ireland to open a crisis and stabilization site in the old First Hawaiian Bank, which is there right by A'ala Park on King Street. He shared with me that I could start referring people as of Monday for that site particularly. He mentioned he's got 32 inside beds and 32 outside tiny homes. And he's providing urgent medical care for folks as well as, yeah. So, I mean, I kind of want to, because I just talked with him this morning. I know this was coming, but I did not know it had just opened. So I'm excited. I'm going to a site visit on Friday myself. And just talk with Dr. Miskovich's program director, Janet, to better understand. So, because I think all of us are very excited about a place that we can take folks that's not the hospital, that's not jail, but that could help stabilize them and maybe get them ready to go to their next step in their housing journey.
Appreciate
so
that.
Those are so those are the 2 that I'm aware of. And again, I believe both are going to be increasing capacity as they, move along. But both of those have just been opened this year, right? And as I mentioned, the city one just in the past week, according to Dr. Miskovich. So, and forgive me if I'm speaking out of line. I'm just sharing what he shared with me today. So.
No, this is perfect. And this may be a question for one of the directors at a future time too. But in terms of these stabilization sites and then core and then HONU, could you describe how they work together or don't work together or could better work together? And I guess also what I'm wondering is if there's a need to have more stabilization beds more geographically dispersed, if that makes sense, versus just in one location.
Is that a question to me?
It is, Heather, if you have any insight.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, I mean, I think that we, I think there is some ways, without getting into many details, I've been a supporter of HONU and referred people to HONU since the beginning. I've definitely seen some changes over time. I do really appreciate the low barrier nature. To me, my understanding is that this new city site, I'm not sure if Director Krucke is still there to clarify, but my understanding is that is very low barrier, meaning that folks that other people might not be able to take would be able to go there. So one of the things I guess I'm getting to is really clear eligibility. There's nothing more frustrating than thinking, oh, there's a new site, let me send somebody that's houseless or bring someone that's houseless, and then they don't qualify for whatever reason. So I think the more that we understand the criteria, whether it's HONU, CORE. Actually, I had a successful call last week where I had a woman naked running in the street on King. And so I called CORE and they came and they supported her. It was really neat to see that in action. It's the first time I've actually called and had that responded because, you know, I didn't have I didn't have the tools to take care of that myself. So being clear on eligibility, and then also ensuring that there is meetings with providers, because we're the community providers are the ones that will refer people. We want to refer the right ones, and we're the ones that are going to help house them, right, when they leave these facilities. So the more that they don't operate in isolation but coordinate, I'm sorry, that seems to be my theme today, the more that we're able to, you know, make sure the right people get there. And then once they're there, work as a team to get them to the next location. So that's not a burden only on the site. So those would be, because I will admit that I don't understand all of the eligibility and workflow and processes, and at times that can make it confusing to be a good collaborative partner. So that'd be my biggest recommendation, again, that the more of us in the community that know who's eligible and how does this work, the more that we can get you the right people and ensure that we help them while they're there and help them to hopefully find their permanent home.
Appreciate that. And then in terms of just the housing spectrum, so once folks are in these stabilization sites, what's kind of the general next steps? Is it more
question.
transitional housing spaces or other opportunities?
Yeah, so there's so once somebody's in a stabilization site, they only, if they're looking for a permanent home, if they can afford, if they have money to pay rent, we have something called rapid rehousing that basically will help them get off their feet with maybe some first or last month. But that's really only made for people who could generate enough income that they could cover their own rent within 6 months to a year. So that's kind of one group. If this person, for whatever reason, is not going to generate income to cover their rent, then their only option is going by the voucher system. And as you may know, there's something called the coordinated entry system or by name list. And they kind of go down by a score that they get on an assessment. And so a lot of what happens is we're waiting for their name to come up on that list, because then they can get a voucher that's a deeper subsidy. It's very rare for somebody to go from a stabilization to a Section 8. So usually those are going to be the two options. Or the third would be reunification. And what I mean by reunification is if they're from the continent and they don't have resources or family here, you may know that IHS and some others have a reunification program. But I also mean reunifying with family. I've definitely had people in my stabilization site that were there because they had a falling out with family. And so why they were with us, we rebuilt relationship, and then family kind of took over to help them get to the next step. But the hard piece is that we have about, as you know, 4,000 unhoused people on Oahu. And those folks are on a wait list. And we don't have a lot of new vouchers for new subsidies coming in. So I'm sorry, that's probably more than you want to know. So the options are reunification with existing resources, getting a shallow short-time subsidy, hoping that they will be able to pay on their own in 6 months to a year. If they need a full or deep subsidy, it's going to be a long wait. And we need to try to find some other temporary or transitional housing. And then the last one is kind of your specialty housing. So that's your group home, you know, for folks with mental health or developmental delay or a skilled nursing facility or foster care. So people who can't live independently might be able to get triaged to a specialty home. But that's where the bottleneck is. And why, at least when I ran stabilization, it was really, we could get them in, but then it was really hard to get them out to the next level just because there weren't enough vouchers or subsidies to go around.
Okay, that's extremely helpful and good information. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, I'll thank you for your time, your presentation, all the work that you're doing, and I'm sure Councilmember Okimoto will be in touch about public safety, and of course Councilmember Tolba about, you know, his district. I'll go ahead and go to testimony. Don't have any registered testifiers. Anyone in person wishing to testify can come forward. Seeing none, we'll go online. No registered online testifiers. Anyone wishing to testify can use the Zoom raise hand feature. I see one identified as Angela Young. Ms. Young, if you want to unmute and go ahead and provide your testimony when you're ready.
Aloha. Councilmember Wire, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES in strong support of the Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center's presentation. So what I got out of it was that there should be a large focus on health as a solution to these problems with crime, homelessness, recidivism, incarceration, jail diversion, alternatives to the traditional sense of punishment. And so instead of building on a reaction to bad things that happen or bad behavior, right? It should be prevention, health prevention, provide the health and medical resources. So if there's a health expert, right, they can tell you that if you provide the medical resources such as mental health, awareness, and counseling, and then also like medications, then the people will have resources and not be like angry and like stressed out and not behaving all the time and causing crime. So also, I just want to say that I really like the training from the Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center. It has a sensitivity to health concerns, right? For example, the law enforcement copied the curriculum from the Department of Justice for crisis intervention training, right, to work with people with disabilities because, right, we don't want to cause additional medical concerns to come up during intervention, and also the sensitivity to health and the training of it is so important, right? So I think that's super effective.
Appreciate your testimony, Angela. Thank you so much. Any questions for the testifiers? See none. I see Director, we'll go ahead and close testimony. Director Krucky back in the audience. And I know we were talking with Heather just about the need and really having space to move folks into more stable environments, right, and having more bed spaces. I just wanted to ask if that's kind of what you're seeing in the community as well, and how.
Well, first I'd say that, Heather Lust's presentation is very good. It doesn't even touch how inspirational she's been in her willingness not only to run her organization, but work with the government organizations to bring these things about. I've learned a lot from her in 3 years. She's absolutely right, and I think I've been quoted as saying beds of many flavors, saying one of the flavors is stabilization, but where do you go to next? And so I think we've been working with council, and if you're not picking out, you're adding these beds every month. When we did affordable housing beds, that program at Waikiki Vista where we did a shelter bed, but then we gave them 3 floors of housing above that. We're trying to address those pockets that she says. I think that overall, last December to this next February, we'll probably add close to 800, 900 beds to our system, and that really helps a lot. And some of those beds turn over every 3 months. And so but all we can do, because I really believe, and I know Heather would probably echo this, is if we don't get somebody to the right bed at the right time, then we haven't, we haven't really moved where we need to move to. And just a bed alone is not right, because you can have bed failure. Right, you send somebody and you think just putting them in housing surrounded by services, if they're not ready for that, and then they'll drop out of that, then they go to the bottom of that wait list that she talked about. And there you are, another problem. And so getting them in the right bed at the right time so that they can begin their journey and then they can self-fulfill is what we really, is the goal. So we're trying, and I think the council is doing a great job in supporting us on that.
Mahalo, Director, appreciate that. Any questions for Director? Seeing none, thank you. Heather, since I still have you on, I'll just ask, what do you see as the most effective way to get rid of that wait list? I don't know if I'm asking the same questions over and over again, but is it just more funding for housing opportunities?
Yeah, and well, to be honest, I think it's more permanent housing. I think we are, as Director Krucky said, you all are doing an amazing job. And some of those are permanent that Director Krucky talked about. But whether it's, I think we have a lot of not in my backyard, right? And so how do we build affordable housing when there is opposition to it? So to me, we're needing more of these brick and mortars, whether it's vertical communities or tiny home kauhales. I do run a kauhale, by the way, at Middle Street, so been seeing the success of that model. But we need the places for people to move into. And as Director Krucki said, I love that, beds of different flavors, because we have some communities that want to stay together. The kauhale is a great example. We have some people that want to age in place. I love that you have maybe in Kapuna Day. You may know we have the largest amount of kapuna identifying as homeless that we've ever seen. So how do we have those kinds? So it's building is what we need to do, honestly, or convert some of these, like I love the Waikiki Vista, the Otakai University building, I believe it is, Director, to now convert that into both shelter and permanent. Those are what we need, is converting more permanent housing spaces in these different flavors that we talked about. And how do we find, my whole goal, Chair, is and as you know, I think we tried to open a home in your district before you were council member and did not do it because the community wasn't accepting it. How do we turn NIMBY to YIMBY? Like, how do we want people to say, yes, in my backyard, I want this, this is my community, I want all kinds of diversity in housing. And so to me, that is where, how do we help communities find that balance? Because we don't want, I also heard Councilmember DePaula talk about that maybe disproportionately her region is impacted by new construction. How do we find a balance? And I guess that's why I'm not a politician, because I don't know that I have the answer, but that's at least from my perspective, is building, and then building with community so that there's agreement around this folks is really being accepted in community. Because that's what I hear from folks that are houseless, is they want to be a good neighbor. They want to be a good community member. You just want that chance. So that's my perspective. Thank you for the opportunity, Chair.
No, thank you. And those are great words to end on. If there's no further discussion from the committee, thank you, committee members. Thank you, Executive Director Lusk, Director Krucki. We are adjourned. Mahalo.